Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's start our video with the story in which our OP volunteered to bake a farewell carrot cake for a departing teammate, only to end up as the cake police when a random coworker whined the slices were too stingy. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Cake slices are too small, and I don't like carrot cake anyway. But can I have more? It was one of those bittersweet office days. A colleague from my department was leaving, and I'd volunteered to bake a cake for their farewell. Baking's something I enjoy, and I'm pretty decent at it. For this send-off, I made a rich, moist carrot cake with cream cheese frosting. It turned out great. Now, I've learned my lesson from last time. When I brought in cake for another occasion, I cut generous slices, only to be told later that several people missed out because the early birds went to town on it. So this time I carefully pre-sliced the cake into what I considered very reasonable portions. Enough to be satisfying, but not so much that people would need a nap afterward. I left the cake in the break room with a little sign saying, "Farewell cake, please enjoy," and figured that would be that. You know, a nice gesture to mark a transition. Something lighthearted, communal. But as always, there's one. Cue random lady from another department. Let me paint you a picture. She comes strutting in like she owns the floor, though I've never seen her talk to anyone outside of her own little clique, and I couldn't tell you her name if my life depended on it. We work in a building where 4 departments share the floor, so there are plenty of unfamiliar faces, and that's fine. But this one? Oh, this one had audacity baked into her DNA. She walks into the break room, looks at the cake, and does the usual polite inquiry. "Oh, what's the occasion? Who made this? Carrot cake, huh? Interesting choice." I politely respond, giving short answers because I've already got that internal radar going off, the one that says this one's going to be a problem. And then she says it. "Wow, these slices are a bit stingy, aren't they?" I blink. "Excuse me?" She shrugs, nonchalantly picking up a slice like she's doing the cake a favor. "I mean, you could have cut them a bit bigger. This won't even be enough for me. I'll need 2 just to be full." I pause for a second, mostly because I'm trying to remember if this is a hidden camera show or just a Wednesday. "Well," I say, keeping my voice even, "last time I brought in a cake, people complained the slices were too big and not everyone got a piece, so I tried to make sure everyone had a fair chance this time." She gives me a smirk. Still, I don't even like carrot cake anyway. And with that, she walks off, slice in hand, back to whatever fluorescent lit cave she crawled out of. Fine, whatever. I go back to my desk, annoyed but letting it go. Or so I thought. Not 5 minutes later, guess who's back? She struts into the break room again with the faux casual air of someone about to pretend they didn't just insult the free food they're about to double dip on. "Oh my God," she says dramatically, "that was actually so delicious. Is there any more left? I have to have another slice." I glance over at her and smile tightly. "Funny," I reply. "I thought you didn't like carrot cake." She rolls her eyes. "Well, it's not my favorite, but that was different, moist. I guess I'll just have another tiny slice." She reaches for the knife again like she's entitled to the leftovers. That's when I step in. "Actually," I say, stepping closer, "you don't work in my department, and a lot of people who do haven't even had a slice yet, so I'd prefer to wait until they've had a chance." She gives me a patronizing little laugh. "You're really going to stand here and monitor cake slices? What are you, the cake police now?" She turns to leave, adding over her shoulder, "You wouldn't even know if I came back and took another later." Oh, honey, you have no idea how much time I can waste when properly motivated. So I did just that. I stood in that break room, leaned against the counter, and monitored the cake like it was a priceless artifact. As soon as someone from my department came in, I handed them a slice. When I ran into someone in the hallway, I passed them a piece wrapped in a napkin. Within 20 minutes, every slice was accounted for and personally delivered. By the time Miss Two Slices returned for her stealth second helping, all that remained was an empty tray and a few crumbs. She looked at it, looked at me, and gave me a half laugh, half glare. "Wow, you really are the cake police." "Yep," I replied cheerfully. "All out, sorry." And then, for good measure, I made a mental note. Never again leave communal cake unguarded. Or better yet, next time label it, "For Department A only. Management tracking portion sizes." I still don't know who she is or what she does, but I do know she's probably still salty about being denied her second helping of carrot cake justice. Cake-related stories make me the saddest. Like it might discourage the OPs from ever baking again. No more free cake to enjoy as a surprise during a mundane workday. It's too sad to even think about. And our second story. Being tall and Asian-looking in the wrong place at the wrong time. Okay, so a little bit of backstory. This happened a year ago. I've always been a tall guy, and people generally think I'm older. During this time, I was just 15. Now I'm 16. Also, in my family, there's a little bit of Asian blood, so sometimes members of my family get born with this Asian-looking eyes. I'm one of those. Sometimes I get confused to be Asian, even though I'm from Central America. Also that day, I participated at a JKA, Japan Karate Association, karate tournament. In there, you get a white t-shirt with the JKA logo and some Japanese letters. I was wearing it during the story. Now to the story. All the interactions were in Spanish. I'm translating it. The tournament ended late in the night, and we all, my dad, my mom, and I, were hungry, so we decided to eat Chinese food that night. In the restaurant, the staff's uniform was similar to my t-shirt. It was white with some Chinese letters and the restaurant's logo. While eating, I ran out of soda, so I decided to go refill it. Midway to the soda machine, a couple stopped me. I looked at them both, and the lady said, "L, the food was wonderful. Could you please give us a menu? We want to order something sweet. Also, could you pick up our plates?" I looked at her, trying to understand what was going on. Then a member of the staff passed by, and I understood she had confused me with the staff member. Me. "Oh, sorry, I'm not a staff member." H. By your t-shirt, it becomes clear you are a member of the staff, and you seem Asian. Like all the staff. If you're lazy or something, it's not my problem. Now do what my wife told you. I look at them both thinking, well, looking Asian doesn't make me part of the staff. Then I decided to repeat. Me. I am not a staff member. The lady looked at me with a killer look. L. Okay, don't worry. Could you please call your manager? I looked at her and simply said, me. Well, I don't work here, so I don't have a manager. H. Okay, I'm done. First you say you don't work here, now you say you don't have a manager? Me. Yep, because I don't work here. Bye. Then I started to walk away. Now, all this time, my parents thought I knew them, and since they were not screaming, my parents didn't hear the conversation. That was until now. When I started to walk away, the husband took my arm and said loudly, H. Hey, where do you think you're going? We aren't done yet. My dad got angry when he saw the dude taking my arm and rushed to the table, but before he could arrive at the table, the manager came to us. M. Manager. Hello, I'm the manager. Could you please tell me what's the inconvenient? He asked politely. H. Yeah, this freaking member of your staff claims not to be one. He doesn't want to do his job. M. I see. Well, you know, sir, he's not a member of the staff, and following our policy, I'm going to need you to pay for your food, then leave. They both looked at the manager with cold eyes, but followed the manager's instructions. After it, the manager apologized to us and gave us a little discount on our food. I've never seen the couple again, but every time I look at my t-shirt, I get the flashbacks. Why do people think, well, this person has slightly inconvenienced me, time for assault? Also, there's literally someone else standing there trying to serve you. Why does it matter so much who it is? Who are these weirdos who'd rather waste time than actually get what they want done? And our last story. Parking Karen threatens to call the police. My parents used to live on one of those quiet, tree-lined suburban streets where nothing much ever happened. Barbecues on weekends, kids riding their bikes after school. It was the kind of place where everyone generally minded their own business, except for one person. Her name was Mrs. Henderson, or at least that's what the mail on her front porch said. Most people just referred to her as the parking lady because this woman had decided completely on her own that she was the self-appointed parking authority of the entire block. To be clear, the street wasn't narrow. There was ample room for residents and guests to park, and the curbs weren't marked in any way. But Mrs. Henderson had her own rules. And according to her, the 20 feet of public street directly in front of her house, that was hers, her sacred domain, her personal driveway extension, despite the fact that she had a perfectly functional driveway she almost never used. The moment someone dared to park in front of her property, even for 5 minutes, she'd fly out her front door like a hurricane in capris and orthopedic sandals. Red in the face, she'd demand the offender move their car immediately. Her favorite threat was to call the police. She'd said it so many times, most of us doubted she even knew how to use the non-emergency line, but she always made a scene. Over time, the neighbors grew tired of the performance and just avoided parking there altogether. My parents, being the type to avoid drama at all costs, were no exception. They warned guests in advance, don't park in front of the house next door, trust us. And then came the day my brother Mark came to visit. Mark had just driven in from out of town and, being unfamiliar with the local rules, didn't think twice about pulling up in front of Mrs. Henderson's house. The curb was open, perfectly legal, and it was the closest spot to my parents' place. As he stepped out and grabbed his overnight bag, the front door next door slammed open. Out she came. Mrs. Henderson marched straight toward him like a woman on a mission, arms pumping, eyes locked on target. "You can't park there," she bellowed. Mark blinked, taken slightly aback by the sudden attack. "Excuse me?" he asked calmly. "That's my spot," she snapped. "You're not allowed to park here. I'll call the police." Now, what Mrs. Henderson didn't know, what nobody on the street knew, is that Mark was the police. He's a detective with the state police and tends to keep it low-key, especially when visiting family. But something about the way Mrs. Henderson puffed up and delivered her threats like she was starring in her own Hallmark movie pushed him just enough to deliver the perfect response. Without missing a beat, he reached into his jacket, pulled out his wallet, and flipped open his badge and ID card. It was smooth, professional, cinematic even. "Already here, ma'am," he said with a polite smile. "Is there anything else I can assist you with other than a complaint about completely legal street parking?" It was like watching someone hit the pause button on Mrs. Henderson's brain. She opened her mouth to respond, then closed it, opened it again, then nothing. Silence. The kind of silence that made birds stop chirping and the mailman slow down to rubberneck. For the first time in what had to be decades, Mrs. Henderson had absolutely nothing to say. Mark gave her a courteous nod, locked his car, and strolled up the driveway to our parents' house like it was just another Tuesday. He didn't even bother turning around. Now, my parents were watching the whole thing unfold from the kitchen window. When Mark walked in, my dad handed him a beer without a word and just said, "Well done." And here's the kicker. From that day forward, Mrs. Henderson never bothered another car, ever. She must have spent the rest of the afternoon replaying that moment in her head, wondering how many other neighbors had secret law enforcement connections. Or maybe it was just the sheer embarrassment of trying to tattle to a cop about street parking as he stood there being a literal cop. Either way, the parking tyrant retired overnight. The imaginary reserved sign vanished. The neighborhood breathed a collective sigh of relief. Turns out the best way to shut down a self-declared suburban enforcer is to let her yell at an actual one. If you're going to pretend you own public property, maybe don't start a fight with someone who actually knows the law, especially when they're holding your undignified defeat in their hands like a business card. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.